speaks on the Batman 2. So okay, in a Rolling Stones interview, James Gunn addressed the status of the Batman Part Two. He clarified that the movie is not canceled. However, he also mentioned that they don't have a script for the film yet. Gunn stated that the director Matt Reeves is taking his time with the script and urged fans to let him do his thing, expressing his frustration with frequent rumors about the sequel being canceled. James Gunn also touched on the separate nature of the Batman films from the main DC universe, explaining they are considered elsewhere projects. While it's unlikely, he stated he would never say zero on the possibility of Robert Pattinson's Batman somehow joining the DCU in the future, but ultimately, Gunn emphasized that he's focused on the upcoming DCU slate, including Superman, while allowing Reeves to work at his own pace with the Batman Part 2. So, how do you feel about about what James Gunn said about this, and about how Matt Reeves is kind of on his own timing right now?
I think that I think that it creates a lot of pressure for James Gunn, but I think that James Gunn is a creative first, which is why he has the partnership with Peter Safran. Like, James Gunn is a creative, and I think that he understands Matt Reeves had some issues. Matt Reeves, aside from that, like, you know me, I'm always going to keep it 100. I think Matt Reeves had some personal issues, but I don't think that that is the only thing that has held this script up. I think a lot of this script was delayed due to creative direction. And I think that with the personal delays, I think, like, if you're not locked in on something, it's much harder to, like, make a dent. I know for me, like, when I'm working, if I'm not locked in, like, things don't happen as good as they do when I am locked in. So I think if you're, like, trying to be a creative and you have some personal issues, you're not really in the right headspace to go through something where you're not sure on a creative direction for something like the Batman Part 2. It's a big decision. So I think that that probably held up a lot of it, but I also think that, being the author that he is, like, he didn't know which direction he wanted to go with. And I think James Gunn wanted to make him as comfortable as he possibly could be, knowing that the Batman Part 2 is going to come out, probably going to be one of the larger gaps between the first movie and a sequel that we've ever seen. In terms, maybe not ever, considering they do like Terminator 5 or whatever, but you get what, you know, but I think that he knew, like, listen, this guy is going to take a while. It's going to suck, but he's the only guy who's going to be able to do it and deliver the best product. I want that. I want to deliver the Batman Part 2. And the only way to do it right is to give Matt Reeves the space, and we're going to do that. And, you know, I heard something recently where I think it had to do with the budget of Superman, and apparently they're not really expecting to turn a profit on it. And that just goes to show that, like, even at Zaslav, like, they really want to do the DCU right. And to do the DCU right, you got to give the creatives their space. And it can't just be about money, money, money. You know, which, listen, it's important. I'm never going to be the guy to tell you the money's not important. And anyone who does, I think you should stop listening to. But I do think that in certain aspects, like, maybe they're weighing the creative at 60% and the commerce at 40 on a couple of these moves. You know, listen, the Batman Part 2 is going to come out. When it does, it's going to be great. And, like, I'm not one of those guys when we find out on X that it's getting a delay and I'm going to be like, oh no, end of the world. Like, as I always say, you know, I've been through getting impatient over delays with No Time to Die, the last Daniel Craig James Bond movie. This movie's going to come out. It's going to be great. It's going to suck. And I'm sure that, you know, the big shareholders of Warner Brothers aren't happy about it. They're like, release this thing tomorrow. And James Gunn obviously has Zaslav obviously has faith in what James Gunn's doing, and they're clearly not pressuring Matt Reeves to like hurry it up, figure out what you want to do with this movie. We need to release it now, which says a lot because there's a lot of moving pieces, which I know Hungry is always talking about. Well, if this movie is going to come out and then Brave and the Bold, like they're going to have to figure that out too. And that is a pretty big moving piece that's probably going to end up being a big dilemma at some point, because I'm telling you right now, they will release two Batman movies. What they won't do is put them out in the same calendar year. I guarantee it. So which one's going to come first? It seems like both of them could end up being ready to release around the same time. And they're going to have a dilemma because they're going to want to release the DCU, Batman and the Brave and Bold, on time to be behind Superman, but they're also going to want to get the Batman Part 2 out. What I think is, back to my main point, is number one, they're giving him the space to breathe, because if, considering they know that dilemma is coming and they're not rushing Matt Reeves now, they are giving him the space to breathe. And it means creatives are going to have the space to breathe at the DCU. It's a very good sign. So for everyone who's worried about the delay, oh my God, this sucks, the Batman's not coming out, and to the Snyder cult, I don't even want to talk to you. But the other thing here is that what I think they should do and what I think they will do is, when they have to decide which one is going to release first, I think they'll put out the Brave and the Bold first, because the Brave and the Bold is attached to the DCU, and that's obviously going to be prioritized above the Batman Epic Crime Saga. And they know the fans for the Batman Epic Crime Saga could wait. The DCU can't really wait as much as the Batman Epic Crime Saga can.
Yeah. This is a proven moneymaker, okay? Proven. It doesn't matter if it released tomorrow, tickets would sell out immediately, because fans are that excited for this, and and the fan movement just shows that. Now we need to talk about Matt Reeves, because James Gunn also said something very interesting, which Matt Reeves is busy as well. Because he's also working with James Gunn on the DCU Batman. Not saying that Matt Reeves is directing, but James Gunn said in this interview that he alluded to something, and I'll pull it up, but he said something to the fact that like him and Reeves are looking at things for Batman. And he wasn't talking about the Batman, because he's not working with Reeves on the Batman. Not to mention Matt Reeves also worked on that Amazon Prime show that failed. And
What
we
Prime
also
show did he do?
remember that Batman where Penguin was a girl.
Oh, the Cape Crusader. That was so
Yeah.
stupid.
Yep. He worked on that. And so the other thing too is that and I don't know how the studio views this, but excuse me for my cough, my allergies. The studio, and this is my thought. I also think the delay for the Batman 2 might be longer than what people think, because they view the Penguin as an installment, which that just came out last year. And so because of the Penguin's success, they could not necessarily feel, or they like that might also be a reason why Matt Reeves is taking more time, mostly because bro had to work to develop that show, which takes time, and we just don't know how far he is in development for this whatsoever. And so Matt Reeves has just been a busy man, bro. So and it seems like right now, like he has full undivided attention. But as I said, James Gunn said in this interview that he's still working with Reeves on other Batman stuff too. So I don't know how much he's being how much he is being pulled, because there was also news that they are doing more spinoffs on the Batman. So does that pull him away too? I'm not necessarily sure. But there's been a lot of there's been a lot of confirmed news that has come out about this epic crime saga universe that they are trying to do. Also, one last thing that I want to say to you guys as well. I'm really not a fan of when people try to assume how people feel. And so be very careful, guys, in the way that you address this thing, because I saw some, creators talking about that James Gunn doesn't want the Batman 2 to be successful. And you have no proof that shows that. And you're just assuming off of article quotes where you can't hear the tone of someone's voice, or you can't see their facial expressions, and you're trying to assume the tone of what someone's saying. So we need to be we also need to be very careful about that too. Because look, we all have intuition. That doesn't mean it's always right. So just wanted to say that because that was really annoying me for the past few days. But yeah, man, Matt Reeves is taking his time, and bro, you might be right. Raven the Bolt might drop before the Batman 2. Now, I would be I'm not gonna lie, bro. I would be very shocked. I really would. But you know, I,
I don't
I'm
I
not
don't
always right.
I don't think they see the Penguin as something that's staving off the Batman sequel, because as great as the show was, it doesn't satisfy fans who are looking to see Batman. And I do think that, as patient as I am willing to be for this movie, there are a lot of fans who just aren't. And like, listen, like I say, I always keep it 100. We have a lot of people in our space and fandoms that are just petulant children. They are like the most entitled, bratty, sometimes intellectually inferior group of people I've seen on the internet. Aside for some of the people in the political space, but that's another story. And you know, I mean, just look at the Snyder Cult, for example. So, and I think that there's a lot of people that do try to judge James Gunn and like James Gunn's personality when, like, the guy has delivered movies before and they've all been good. So I don't like, even if you don't like what you perceive his personality to be, and I'm very intuitive, all that, but I do agree with what Stevie said. I think that there's a lot of people who try to judge like how someone's feeling, what their intentions are, their motives, all of that, when they have very limited info to do that. And I do see a lot of that with James Gunn. So I think that was a good point. But listen, these movies are going to come out. They're probably going to be great. And once they are, you're not going to see comments like Kevin's where James Gunn's making all this about himself. Like, people are just going to be like, the movies are great. I really don't care what James Gunn says in Entertainment Weekly.